Let's talk to God. One more thing, like, subscribe and share. Come on, let's talk to God. Woo!
Hey everybody, it's Cutler here in the Let's Talk to Cutler broadcast. It is Thursday, July 28th, and the month is moving, the week is moving, the summer is moving, and so are we. I'm delighted. It's another chance for me to spend 1,800 seconds with you all and see if we can, what we can do about some inspiration, motivation, and see if we can challenge ourselves to show up a little bit better tomorrow than we did today. We've talked about that. We've talked about what it means. It means that today wasn't a failure or flop or anything. It just means that we're just taking a look at ourselves and seeing, what can I learn from the day? Are there any lessons that the day has taught me that I can just use to catapult myself into a position that's called better tomorrow? The last time we chit-chatted, the last time we talked, I reminded us that better is just not someplace that's 5 years down the road. It's not someplace that's just 10 years down the road, but every single day presents an opportunity for us to be better than we were the moments before. That's what life is about. It's about learning the lessons. It's about making sure that if you missed the lessons the first go round, then if God is gracious, and He is, we'll learn the lesson again. It'll come back around and we'll get a chance to learn it. We'll get a chance to grab the moment and see, what did I miss the first go round? Lord, please help, please let me learn my lesson the second time around, because we don't always get it right the first time. That's why I wrote a book that's called that very same thing. We don't always get it right. But this channel is not to condemn. It's not to be judgmental. It's not to beat us up. But it's to put us all into a happy space and put us in the space where we say, yep, I enjoyed that conversation. I got something out of that conversation. I'm going to do a little bit better. I'm going to be more intentional about being better. That's what our conversations here are all about, just to remind us to be more intentional about being better. So if this is your first time passing by my channel and you're wondering, what is that guy talking about? That's what we're talking about: inspiration, motivation, and challenging ourselves to show up better. So now that you know that, do me a favor. Go ahead. Wendy, I'm so glad that you're smiling. Do me a favor and go ahead, now that you know what we're here talking about, because there's enough negativity. There's enough of all that stuff, so many places, but we take this moment to focus on ourselves. So now that you know what this channel is about, do me a favor. Click on the subscribe, and then go ahead and click on the notification bell, because it lets you know whenever I've gone live or uploaded new content. Now, I need to shout out the LTTC VIPs. Cutler, who are they? What is that? Let's talk to Cutler, very important people. Everybody's important, but it's just a friendly game to see who jumps into the chat first each evening. So I like to shout out those people. And it looks like, let me just go ahead and put them up on the screen for a quick moment. Andy Cutler says, let's ride. That's what we're going to do today. We're going to ride. Our good friend Jet says, good evening to everybody. And good evening to you, my friend. It's always good to see you. And then coming in third, who jumps in the chat third, looks like Paula D. Hello, everyone. Hold on tight. We're in for a ride. We are in for a ride, because we're going to continue our conversation where we talked about how to be your best self, how to make sure that you are your best self. That's what we're going to talk about, because so many times we're focusing on everybody else. We're focusing on have you all ever found yourself so engrossed in other people's lives and so committed to helping them become better until just for a moment, you almost lost yourself? Or you lost yourself in what someone else was doing. And then when you went back to say, what was I doing? What was important to me? Then you somehow forgot it. You somehow forgot what was important to you. You somehow forgot what your goals looked like. You forgot what you were doing. So then, yesterday, or not yesterday, but our previous conversation and this conversation, it is about making sure that we are our best selves. I told you all that when I finished law school, some of my friends used to call me new and improved. And again, I didn't necessarily think I was new and improved, but I liked some of the things that I had learned in life. I appreciated some of the experiences that I had encountered in life. Did I like them all? Not necessarily, but did I appreciate them? Absolutely. I appreciate the wisdom of the years that I had gained in life, and I was not going to offend God by not pretending that they didn't exist. I often tell you all that one of my favorite lines in The Color Purple is when they were walking out in the fields and they said, it must piss God off how we could walk past The Color Purple and not even notice it. I think something similar happens with ourselves when we evolve and we grow and we develop and we mature, we become better, and we don't acknowledge it. I think it must be an insult to the Creator to know that we've learned, we've lived, we've gained, we've obtained wisdom, and yet we don't put it in practice. We don't pay it forward. We don't share it with other people. So this platform reminds us to do that. This platform definitely reminds us to do that. So you all know we've been talking about, are you your best self? And I went through, I introduced a few ways. And listen, again, I'm only here for 1,800 seconds, but I went through some helpful hints and some tips on how we can look at ourselves and ask ourselves certain questions to see, am I my best self? Am I working to in my full potential at the moment? Because remember, my best self today, I'm the same person that I was 20 years ago, just a different version of me, but I'm the same person. You are who you are, who you are, who you are. But over the years, over time, you grow and you evolve. You're the same person, but there's a different version of you. The 15-year-old version of me is nothing like the 25-year-old version of me. It's nothing like the 35-year-old version of me, or the 45 or the 55-year-old version of me. Those are different versions of who I have been along my journey, along my path, while walking in purpose. And it's the same way with you. I think I said the last time, there is no way in the world, if I would have tried to be the person today, if I would have tried to be this person 30 years ago, I would have failed miserably. Learn how to be who you are in the moment. Don't compare yourself with other people, but learn how to be who you are in the moment. So what are some of the things, what are some of the helpful hints and the tips that I talked about when we last chatted about tips for becoming your best self? I'll recap some of those and then I'll go into, I'll finish the list, and I want to talk about how to become motivated, because one of the helpful hints that I offered the last time really was a bridge into a conversation about motivation. So I want to spend some time talking about motivation this evening. I know I don't have that long, but that's okay. We can do it. But some helpful hints for becoming your best self. One of the things that we said last time we chatted was to make sure that you set goals. Set goals, because it's even written in scripture. But and if you don't want the scriptural context, hear me when I say this. Write your own vision for your life. Write the vision and make it plain. Set goals. Write your own vision. Know what you want to do. Know that you want to be more. You want to be better. You want to make plans for your life. Know that. So that was the first hint that I offered for becoming your best self. Then the second thing that I talked about was learning how to eliminate. That's what we talked about, getting motivated. Learn how to eliminate the distractions. We know that people can be distractions. And I told you all that one of my cousin's one of her favorite quotes that I've adopted is, I've made some changes, and if you don't hear from me, you're one of the changes I've made. I think I shared that with you all before. I love that quote because people can be distractions, but you all also know that sometimes we can be our biggest distraction as well. Sometimes we get in our own way. We trip over our own feet. So one of the things that we're going to talk about this evening, as a segue from this point, eliminating distractions, Cutler, how do I get motivated? How do I eliminate those distractions? Part two of our conversation this evening is going to be focusing on getting motivated. All right. But let's keep on going down the list. We also talked about stepping out of your comfort zone. What does that look like? What does it mean? Because so many times we do what we call spinning our wheels in the mud. We do the same things over and over and over. And you all know the definition of insanity. It's doing the same thing the same way, expecting different results. But let's learn to step out of our comfort zone. That means we have to do some things a different way. And sometimes we have to do different things. Step out of your comfort zone. Even if you're going to do the same thing, do it a different way. Or if you're going to use that routine, that way of doing something, do something different by using that method. You see what I'm saying? So learn how to step out of your comfort zone. Because becoming your best self means evolving into something and somebody that's new. Sometimes people are shy. Sometimes people are not comfortable speaking. So in order to get out of your comfort zone, sometimes you've just got to say, you know what, I'm going to do this. Even if I have sweaty palms and if my knees are knocking, I'm going to do this. I'm going to try it. That's stepping out of your comfort zone. I don't like to write, is what some of you may say. But guess what? Just try it. Just write a few things and nobody has to see it but you. You stepped out of your comfort zone. I don't like to exercise. I don't want to go to the gym. Well, if you don't want to go to the gym, get out and walk around the block. Do something. So it means getting out of the rut, getting out of the pattern that you've set for yourself and expecting the same thing. You've got to get out of that comfort zone. And then the last thing I think that we chit-chatted about when we were here last was get some help. Sometimes you have to get an accountability partner. Sometimes you need someone who will check you and say, nope, I'm going to push you or pull you, poke you, and just make sure that you keep going. And then even if you don't get an accountability partner, we talked about making sure that your community, your village, is filled with the people who need to be there. And sometimes we can forget in certain cultures that we need experts or professionals. So it's okay to get help. All right. That was just reminding of what we talked about, just in case somebody didn't catch the previous session. I wanted at least to bring us on the same plateau, the same level. I wanted to level the playing fields. Well, now here's another helpful hint that I want to take off with. Another helpful hint is to focus on wellness, you all. If we're going to be our best selves, we have to, I can't ignore this, we have to focus on wellness. Because a part of being your best self, it includes your best physical self, your best emotional self, your best mental self, your best spiritual self. You will never be your best business-minded or entrepreneurial or professional self until you can be your best emotional and mental self. It all goes hand in hand. Sometimes we like to push and put forth certain facets of our lives while we're repressing others, but you will never be your best self until you focus on wellness and you are your best whole self. I need to say that again. Because a lot of times we'll put certain things on the back burner and we'll act like it's okay to put those parts of our lives on the back burner. We'll put our mental health on the back burner and we won't check that. We'll put our emotional health on the back burner and we won't check that. But in order to be your best self, you have to be your best whole self, your best entire self. So that means you've got to focus on wellness in every facet of your life. In the physical, it means we've got to drink water. It means we have to practice proper eating habits. You got to get your proper rest and sleep. I had to learn that. I had to learn it because law school conditioned me so much years ago. Law school conditioned me so much to get up early, read lots of materials, go into law school, go to class, do what I had to do. At the end of class, it was the same routine. I had volumes of material to read by the next day. I'm just not talking like 20 pages. I'm talking hundreds of pages that I had to read. And so I'd gotten in the habit of not sleeping well. But you have got to get your proper rest and your proper sleep if you're going to be your best whole self. You've got to. And then in terms of your emotional and your mental health, learn how to go offline sometimes. Learn how to go off the grid. Disconnect whenever you have to. Because again, you've got to focus on wellness, emotional and mental wellness. Sometimes people are just psychologically and mentally fatigued and they wonder why. Because you're in the rut of doing things. You're taking care of the family. You're going to work. You're doing all of those things. And we forget sometimes how to go offline, how to go off the grid, how to disconnect, how to come out of pocket. But don't forget that, y'all. That is a part of self-love. So many times we talk about self-love and self-care. That's a part of self-love. That is a part of self-care. Loving yourself enough to say, you know what? I have got to disconnect sometimes. I've got to go offline sometimes. All right? Got another one for you in terms of making sure that we are our best selves. I'm curious, how many of you would say that in this moment you are your best self? I'm just wondering. How many of you would say in this moment you're your best self? No judgment, no condemnation. Because we've got to get to the point where we can say, you know what? My best self today doesn't necessarily look like my best self yesterday. And tomorrow it may not necessarily look like it did today. Best means you are in an ideal situation given the circumstances. We actually say given the totality of the circumstances, the total, the completeness, the wholeness, the totality of the circumstances. When I consider everything in the space where I am now, am I my optimal self? Given everything that I deal with now. Because yesterday, maybe I didn't have to deal with some of those things. It's not necessarily a setback when something new or different comes along, because my best self today may not look like my best self did yesterday. Yesterday, I didn't have to deal with that. I hope I'm helping somebody. Just because you have a new situation that you have to deal with, it doesn't take you out of the range of functioning as your best self. You're your best self now with a new set of circumstances. Sometimes we beat ourselves up because we are not the same self. That's not what best means. Same and best are not necessarily synonymous. I got a new set of challenges today. So I'm not the same person that I was yesterday. Yesterday's person didn't have to deal with that, but I can be my best self today, given the additional weight that I may have to carry. I hope that's helping you not to be so hard on yourself. Sometimes new weights, new challenges, new circumstances, and new conditions will come along tomorrow that you didn't have to deal with yesterday. Just because you have to carry more weight today, that does not make you not your best self. I hope that helps somebody. Because we beat ourselves up and we say, Lord, why me? What's going on? Why do I have to deal with that? Why do I have to deal with this? I didn't have to deal with it yesterday. But guess what? If you're carrying it today, if you're maintaining it, if you're doing all that you can do today, given what you have to carry today, you're your best self. I want you to stop beating yourself up thinking that I'm not my best self. You don't have to deal with that yesterday. Stop comparing yourself with everybody else. Jane doesn't have to deal with what you're dealing with today. John doesn't have to deal with what you're dealing with today. You have to deal with what you're dealing with today. And if you're handling it to your optimal ability, you're your best self today. If you can look yourself in the eye, stand in the mirror and say, you know what, I did the best I could, then that means you are your best self today. We know when we don't do our best. You can look yourself in the mirror and say, no, you know what, I could have done a little bit better with that today. And that's okay. Let me get to this next one. I want to encourage us, but I want to challenge us, but I also want to encourage us to not beat ourselves up. Because we think best means that I had to look the same way I did yesterday. We think best means I have to look like somebody else is looking today. That's not what it means. It means, am I in this moment, given everything that I have to deal with, am I my optimal self? And I think so many times we are, and we forget that. Here's another helpful hint for making sure that you are your best self. It's the last thing that I will say along that list, because I want to talk about how we can motivate ourselves. But the last thing I will say is this: learn how to prioritize peace. Learn how to prioritize peace. And you all know me well enough to know that this is never an option for me. It's one of the things that I will not compromise. And I suggest to you, don't let it be an option. It's not negotiable. I won't compromise on it because I entreat peace as a gift from God. Cutler, why would you say that? Because knowing how chaotic the world can be, my faith has to speak now, you all. Knowing how chaotic the world can be, there are some things that I just cannot wrap my mind around. Some things I cannot wrap my intellect around. No matter how many degrees I have, there's some things that I just cannot wrap my mind around. Some things will never make sense to me. Some things will always bother me. Some things will always give me pause. But my faith reminds me that God loves me enough to have said to me, peace I give you. And knowing that my own peace would not substantiate me, would not support me in all of the foolery of what's going on. Listen, I still have peace, you all. The internet dropped, the internet fell. You all say something in the chat so I know that you're still here, please. Looks like some of you all are still here. I was on a roll talking about peace. So you all let me know if you're still here, if you're still with me. I'm going to sit here and smile and grin like you all are still here because I think you are. Oh, good. Thank you. Thank you, Wendy, for letting me know that you all are still here. But listen, I am still such a peaceful person when the internet just went down, I said, well, I'm talking about peace, so I will remain peaceful. And that's what I did. That's what I did. Let me just, there we go. So I was saying we've got to treat our peace as a gift because that's exactly what it is. Right. Thank you. Wendy Smiles Jet says we're here. I'm here. Annie says here. MV present. T Color here. T Color. We were sitting in peace. Absolutely. Sometimes remember some time ago I showed up and I talked about the Serenity Prayer made simple. There are some things that we can't do anything about. Learn not to get frazzled. Learn not to get frazzled. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things, the peace to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage, the intestinal fortitude, the inner strength to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Sometimes you got to play the cards that you've been dealt. Right, Paula, the internet is not being its best self. We've seen it function so much better. But let me keep on going, you all, because just know that your peace really is a divine gift. You're never going to be any good to anybody else if you're always stressed out and worried. You're not. Some people have had nervous breakdowns due to things that they cannot control. I'm talking about being your best self. Linda, you said you had to go to your TV. Yeah. Some people have had nervous breakdowns due to things that they cannot control. Some people have died and gone on. And the people who worried them to death and literally acted like fools, they are still here. Guess what they're doing? Still acting like fools. Don't let people give you a nervous breakdown. Don't let people interrupt your divine gift of peace. You all know I could talk about peace forever. So I'll just say this. Learn how, in terms of being your best self, you all learn how to prioritize your peace and say, my peace is not for sale. It's not negotiable. It's not compromisable. It's not compromisable. And know this, you all, be comfortable. As you prioritize peace, be comfortable with whatever that looks like for you, with whatever it means for you. Be comfortable with that. Because a lot of times people are running around trying to find peace, trying to, how do I handle peace? Can I tell you this? And I promise you, I may have to even get to just how to motivate yourself and how to deal with self-motivation the next go round. But while I'm still talking about peace, sometimes people say, well, Cutler, I've heard you talk about peace. And I'll give you a few extra seconds this evening just because the internet acted up. But sometimes people say, Cutler, I've heard you talk about peace. And how did you get there? How did you find it? It was a process, you all. And can I tell you all that there was sometimes I fumbled and bumbled, but I stumbled upon peace. I experienced enough bumps and bruises and scratches and scrapes, but I found peace. Because I had to learn what serenity was like, what calmness was like. I had to understand what it was like. And how did I get that? I learned how to connect with nature. When you spend time with nature, doing things like taking walks, you find serenity. You all know I'm from the South. And I looked at what some of my older relatives sometimes modeled for me. They were masters at connecting with nature. They were masters at connecting with nature. They could just walk around and name the different trees. And so I learned how to do that. I learned the difference between a pine tree and a sweet gum tree and a tulip poplar and a black walnut and a dogwood and a maple. I learned the difference between a sycamore. I learned the difference between all of that. So I learned how to connect with nature. I had older relatives who would just sometimes say, just go outside, just go outdoors. My mother would tell us sometimes, y'all just go outside. And I had relatives who would sometimes just go out and sit on the porch. And they were able to hear the sounds and identify the animals based on the sounds. They could tell you what the whooping owl was and what the woodpecker was and what the crickets, chirping crickets were and what the bullfrogs and toad frogs were. They could tell you the sound of a red cardinal versus a blue jay versus a robin. They could look at the butterflies and tell you that's a monarch, or that's a viceroy, or that's a swallowtail. They could tell you all of those things. They would go fishing, not necessarily with the rods and the reels, but they would just walk or sometimes slowly drive to the water and sit on the pier, calmly fish. And they could tell you the difference between a croaker and a trout and a mullet and a drum and a catfish. Because they learn how to connect with nature. One of my aunts, God rest her soul, my Aunt Louise said she could just walk around in her yard and almost name the weeds. And I would say, who could do that? And she would say, when you've done it as long as I have, you just know how to do it. Just tell you all these different flowers, the roses, the azaleas, the tulips. I mean, just all of that stuff. Learn how to connect with nature. It teaches you what serenity is all about. I didn't know I was going to walk into a lesson of peace, but I hope I'm helping us, because sometimes we look for it and we don't know how to find it. But connecting with nature. Yes, Linda, we have to seek it. And it is calming. And sometimes you just go out and just meditate. And meditate, and I want to say this because sometimes we think meditation takes us to this psychological or this spiritual trip. Sometimes meditation is just sitting in quietness and observing the moment. Basking on that moment, the magic of that moment. Meditate on the fact that I'm living and I'm breathing. That's why sometimes they could sit on the porch in silence, because they learned serenity. And then every now and then you would notice people in the South, in the countries, when they were sitting on their porch, they were at peace. People would walk by or ride by. They didn't even necessarily know them, and they would wave. Practice gratitude. Learn how to practice thankfulness. I'm thankful that in this moment I can hear, I can breathe, I can see, I can smell, I can talk, I can walk, I can think, I can dress myself, I can eat and taste my food. None of that dealt with things. None of that dealt with things. But that was practicing gratitude for who and what I am. Peace. I got to give you a couple more, you all, because this is what my journey to peace, and this is why I'm so careful with making sure that I still live in a space of peace. I learned how not to be a prisoner of my past. I can't necessarily forget it. I'm with you. Learn how to remember, but release. So I can remember my past, but I also know how to release it. Release my past failures so that I don't become a prisoner to them. Release my past victories so I don't think that is as good as it gets. So remember, but know how to release. And then I'll just stop with this. I promise you I'll pick up motivation the next time. But here's just another helpful hint for finding peace. Learn how to declutter. Learn how to declutter. Declutter your thoughts, your emotions, and even your physical space. I had to learn how to do that. Why is that important, Cutler? Because when you don't declutter your thoughts and your emotions and even your physical space, you sometimes feel imprisoned by those things. And when you feel imprisoned by those things, you won't tell yourself that you can grow beyond them. We're talking about peace and becoming our best selves. I really hope this is helping somebody, because we all want peace and we all want to be our best selves. I know I do. I definitely do. All right, you all. I think I've been with you long enough. The internet, that was that, that glitch, that interruption. So I thought I'd stay just a little longer. I want to thank you all for giving me the opportunity to share. This is truly just a part of my journey. This whole conversation about peace, this whole conversation about making sure that I'm my best self. I don't have to be the same self that I was yesterday. I can just show up a little bit better today than I did yesterday. Better means that I'm better equipped to handle the things that I had to deal with yesterday. If I'm handling them today, I'm handling them a little more responsible. And if something else is added to my plate, then I'm dealing with it in an optimal situation. That means I'm my best self in this moment. Learn how to say to yourself, yes, in this moment, I am my best self. All right. Thank you all so much. Let's keep building community. Let's keep maintaining connectivity. Keep your heads up, keep your hopes up. Stay safe and stay sane. Know this, from my heart to yours, there is and always will be so much love. Next time we chat, we will talk about how to motivate yourself. Good night, everybody. I'll talk to you. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.